Welcome, everybody. My name is Omar. I am your host for today. With me, we have the Scrum Mother, Katrina, and also our founder, Andrea Pratt-Smith. So welcome to today's session. We're glad that you're here with us. As you all know, the topic today is how to get experience as a Scrum Master without being a Scrum Master. So, before we jump into it and get some valuable information, I'm going to pass it off to Andrea, as typically we do. We do start each session with a small invocation. So Andrea, go ahead, take it away.
Thank you, Omar, and thank you everyone who is joining us, and also our guests. Heavenly Father God, we come before you again as the Bahamas Agile and Project Management community. Lord, we are so grateful for everything you have done from our inception, everything that you're doing now, and everything that you will do in the future. Lord, we thank you for ordering our steps. We know that everything that we've been able to accomplish, it was only through you and you alone. Even though you may have the desire, the purpose, and the passion, Lord, we know that we are following your will, and that everything that we do, we are doing in accordance to what you would have us to do. And we ask that you will continue to use us as your willing vessels as we use this platform, the Bahamas Agile and Project Management community, to not only share knowledge, Lord, but to also fellowship with like-minded individuals and to spread the gospel of love. We ask that you would put a special anointing of blessings and favor amongst all of us who are in attendance here and those who are on their way, that we would have an open mind to learning, to exploring, and to expanding our network, Father God, because we know that it's through collaborations and through community that we grow as individuals. And we know that our net worth is tied to our network. So Lord, we ask that you would give us an expansion of our network. We ask that you would allow our reach to continue to be global, and that we would always be in a position where we could influence change for the good of mankind. We ask these things in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. That was very nice. It was lovely.
Thank you, Andrea, for that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take full advantage of our time here. Again, we welcome you and thank you for continuing with us. Without further ado, the Scrum Mother, Katrina Coker. Go ahead, Katrina. Floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. And just doing a little bit of check-in here. Can you all see my screen that says 12 tips how to get experience as a Scrum Master? Okay. So as we said, my name is Katrina Coker. I go by the Scrum Mother. If we have time, I would love to give you the explanation behind that story of how I became the Scrum Mother. And but many people may know me already on social media under that name, but it is more than just a cute little nickname. So Scrum Mother is the name of my corporation, and my mission is to teach, inspire, and move towards purpose, power, and progress. That's what I've tried to do with everything that I present, and my voice and my words and my actions is what I strive to have that be centered around. All right, so in terms of what we're going over today, thank you, Omar, who had kind of already asked around the table of why you were here and what brought you here. So I should tell you what we're going to go over to make sure that you still want to be here. I'm just going to give a brief introduction as to who I am and my Agile journey, as to why I feel I have credibility to speak on this subject, and then going to go over some tips I have on how to get experience as a Scrum Master without being a Scrum Master, but then also give you a few tips about when you might not want to be a Scrum Master. I often have people come to me that tell me X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, you're going to hate this. So my role is always to help you discern whether this is the path you want to take or whether this is the path that this is just a step and you want to go somewhere else. Just a little bit of setting expectations. This will not be an Agile Scrum 101. I also will not go into non-Scrum Master roles, even though I do have experience in other roles. The overall goal, though, is for you to walk away with at least one thing you can do tonight right? That you can walk out of this meeting today to help you move towards your journey of being a Scrum Master. A lot of people come to me and there are a variety of things that they feel the Scrum Master role entails, but there's a lot that you could be doing today to help you building up your resume or helping you create your narrative of how you can continue on your journey. If you have, I will say I'm doing my best to be able to check the chat as well. I have it on my side. But Omar and or Andrea, if you could just keep a look on it.
Oh, I got you.
Cool. So if I don't see it, please let me know. So a little bit about who I am, and I'll get to some of these pictures. Just some fun facts about me. I live in Beaufort, Sugar Hill, Georgia, which is about 45 minutes to an hour north of Atlanta in the state of Georgia in the US. This is my first, even though I've spoke at other meetups with international audiences. This is my first group that I've attended that is actually based internationally. So I'm very excited to be here. If you've ever heard of the Mall of Georgia or Lake Lanier, that is where I live. So this picture on the top, that's actually right around the corner from my home where I took that. I love to go there to do sunrise, just do sunsets. I live here with my two cats that you'll see on social media every now and then, Avery and Fiona. By day, I am a senior Scrum Master. I do this professionally full time. Currently, I'm with Eliason, which is a staffing group, but the client I work with is Cox Enterprises. If you've ever heard of Cox Enterprises, Cox Communications, Cox Auto, that's the family. But I work with Cox Enterprises specifically. And then the Scrum Mother is a business that I run, coaching, mentoring, and training, all things Agile and Scrum, but specifically the Scrum Master role. So I'm a CEO, COO, coach, mentor, trainer, and content creator. And just because I do like to have a little bit of a fun fact, I could not join a Bahamas group without talking about my experience in the Caribbean. I could not find my pictures from Bahamas, so I apologize. But I did play Mass and Carnival in Trinidad and Tobago in 2011. So these pictures on the right is where I actually participated in Carnival. So be able to create a little bonding experience for those of you who have done that. Now, as far as content creation, I always ask everybody if anybody would like to be part of a TikTok right now. And if you do, you can turn your cameras on. If you don't, you can leave them off. It's going to be real quick. Okay. Someone give me a song, any song. What's the top song right now?
Tiesto Red Lights.
What song is that?
Red Lights from DJ Tiesto.
Okay, give it just a minute. I'm going to find it.
That's how Omar pronounced that. I have no idea what that is because that was too much rolling of the R's.
It's Red Lights by DJ Tiesto.
Yes.
Is that who it is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. There's a lot of red lights, but that one is actually not coming up. So let's see.
Same DJ. Let's get down to business.
Same DJ. Let's get down to business.
Yeah, I'm a huge EDM guy.
Okay. I can only go with TikTok what they allow me.
No problem.
Try the Dreamers from Jungkook. He's one of the guy from BTA.
Dreamers.
Yeah, Dreamers, Jungkook.
Okay, we'll try that, and that will see what we can do. There's Dreamers by DJ Bay, B-A-I. We'll see. Here, I'll show you. It's okay. It's just gonna be a quick video. So this is Dreamers. Y'all like that? Hear it? Yay, nay, down.
We can't hear it.
I can't hear it.
I hear it.
Okay.
I hear something now.
Good audio. Let's see. Let me try something real quick. And then if this doesn't work, then we'll move on. I was going to see if I could change the audio from my computer. It's okay. That's fine. All right. We'll just pick this one. And then if you want, leave your camera on, and then I'm just going to show the screen, and feel free to stay off. Okay. And then I'll explain that we randomly picked this song. All right. You ready? Okay. 1, 2. I'll give it one more second. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Just wave. Do something funny, whatever you want. Yes, Bahamas. Woo. All right, that's it. So you're also gonna be internationally renowned as well, or whoever sees this video on the internet. All right, so I do film videos for social media under the Scrum Mother that are a little bit more elaborate than that, but it's also fun to be a part of. So I have a few things that I do on the side outside of my day job, where I make videos all about Agile Scrum and the Scrum Master role, where I also specifically coach and mentor people on the Scrum Master role. Okay, but you might be asking at this point, why do I have the credibility to do that? So at this point, it's just going to give you a little bit overview as my Agile journey that can give you a little bit of understanding as to where I'm coming from. I have a master's in conflict management and a bachelor's in international business with marketing and Spanish. I've worked in multiple industries, grew up in the medical field, much of hospitality, global immigration, actually from a corporation perspective, so corporate immigration, relocation services. But I've formally been within the Agile industry in a formal Agile role since 2016, where I've worked as an engagement analyst for 2 years for an Agile consulting company. I feel that actually gave me great experience seeing how Agile is implemented at different companies. At that company, I also happened to be the executive assistant to the COO. So I also got to experience what Agile and Scrum is like from how executives in companies view it, right? How to somewhat speak their language. In that company, I got certified as a Scrum Master and a product owner. I actually was pursuing the product owner role. I did not want to be a Scrum Master. I was pursuing the product owner role, actually got a full-time product owner role. 3 months into my full-time product owner role, I started performing as the Scrum Master temporarily at the same time. Temporarily, that lasted 9 months. So I was a full-time product owner, then I started operating as a product owner and Scrum Master at the same time. I actively was saying, when are you going to hire a Scrum Master? When are you going to hire a Scrum Master? And then from there, it just happened to be that everyone in my department, Scrum Master was a secondary role. So there was no one that was a full-time Scrum Master. So other people were developers or quality engineers were asking me how to be a Scrum Master, or they would do something that I was like, that's probably not the way to do it. This is the way you should do it. And then other people outside of work personally started asking me about the Scrum Master role. Then finally one day I'm like, I think I'm a Scrum Master. Okay. So I decided to pursue a fully dedicated Scrum Master role. And at that time, at that company, they did not have any fully dedicated Scrum Masters in my department, in my building. There were only 2. Irony, I was in Virginia at the time, and the only 2 fully dedicated Scrum Master roles were in Atlanta. And not only was I not able to move at the time, but I didn't know how I felt about being a fully dedicated Scrum Master to remote people, which is all ironic now, right? We're all remote to some extent. But I did pursue a fully dedicated Scrum Master role, and I have been a fully dedicated Scrum Master since April 9th, 2019. So a little over 4 years, which is really crazy. I have worked at Cvent, where I was a Senior ScrumMaster, was there for about 3.5 years. I've now been with Eliason since last December. So I'm coming up on a year, which is also really exciting. I've worked with teams all over the world, Poland, India, England. I had some people in France, I had people in Mexico, people all over the US. So I've worked with maybe 10 teams at this point in my 4 years. So I've had a lot of experience with different industries, different types of people, different types of teams, different companies. So what I bring you today is not only my experience as a Scrum Master, I bring to you experience on a hiring committee to hire Scrum Masters. I also bring you experience as I coach and mentor Scrum Masters who are looking to become Scrum Masters. So my experience is the full gamut, where I feel like I have a pretty good understanding as to help you pursue this journey if it's something that you wanted. Although I will tell you my personal experience about the Scrum Master role is it's a life skills. So anybody could benefit from learning the skills that we as Scrum Masters do. Okay. Before I go forward, anyone have any questions? Questions, concerns? Okay. So, but before I move forward, the only disclaimer is that the following information is basically my experience. It may not be industry standard. It may not be other Scrum Masters feel the same way. This is from my experience as a Scrum Master, hiring Scrum Masters, and coaching and mentoring other Scrum Masters. So this is my CYA to not get sued. Okay. But before I talk to you about tips to be a Scrum Master, it's very important that you understand what my philosophy of the Scrum Master role is. Okay. When anybody says what are good qualities of a great Scrum Master, what it takes, and I will always say a mixture of compassion and operations. You have to be very good at getting things done, but you have to be very good at liking people and being able to influence and get along with people. We care much about merging those to create healthy systems so that everyone wins, right? We build the best products that people want and need while liking our jobs and getting along with each other. So I feel like Scrum Masters are the get shit done people. Okay. So in my tips that I'm going to give you, it's about taking those things into consideration. What are things you could be doing today to help build those skills from an operations perspective, as well as what are the skills that you could be doing now to build up from a compassion perspective. Okay. Now, I've also kind of broken this down into there's the formal training, which I'm going to give y'all a shout out because there's a lot of people who reach out to me want to be Scrum Masters. They've never attended a meetup in their life. And all they're doing is applying, and filling out applications online is not enough. This is also a very people-oriented role, so it shouldn't be enough, right? We got to be able to connect and build up our humanity. So from a formal training perspective, this is what most people know. This is the reading the Agile Manifesto, reading the Scrum Guide, taking the classes, the formal certifications. I'm not going to go into this though. Okay, we can talk about it later if you have questions on any of these. But what my hopes today is to talk to you about what I do every single day that may not be mentioned during a Scrum Master class, right? Or may not be mentioned during the Scrum Guide. And if you read the introduction, I get asked this question at least once a week. How can I get experience? Where can I start? Then people say, I have no experience. I'm starting from the ground up. And my point of view is that you're really not as far as you think you are. It's just how you're communicating. If you've ever had a job before, you have experience. If you're using technology right now, you have some experience as using technology. May not working on technology, but you have experience as a consumer. And if you've had any job in a leadership role, there are many skills that you've acquired that we just need to help, that you might need help communicating how they're transferable. Okay. Now, my disclaimer is it's even doing all the right things, it is still difficult to land your first role as a Scrum Master. It's taken people 9 to 12 months or more. But you're not going to get it if you're not taking any steps forward to try to better yourself and to try to learn more about this role. And there's a lot of things that you can be doing before you ever become a Scrum Master to practice being a Scrum Master. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to give you 12 tips, 6 tips from an operations perspective, and 6 tips from a compassion perspective of things that I do every single day. And I'm going to give you practical examples of how you might be able to build up those skills. Okay, so just shaping expectations. I'm going to also lean into the Agile practice of, if this is not for you, feel free to step out. Feel free to take what you love about this, leave everything else. This is for, I want to be able to help and guide you, but if you feel like it's not beneficial or valuable to you, then that won't hurt my feelings. But you can give feedback. I'm always open to feedback. So let's get into it. All right. So we're going to start with operations. These are the things I'm going to go into. Scrum, knowing Scrum, setting agenda and expectations, taking notes, facilitation, vision, roadmap planning, backlog management planning, and metrics and reporting. Okay. So just, I'm going to also send out this deck. Y'all feel free to take notes as you think, but I also want to be attentive to, I'm also going to send this out. Okay. So the first thing, I can't say how practical this is. There are people who want to get started in Scrum, but they feel like they cannot start practicing Scrum until they become a Scrum Master. Not only is that not true, it is going to hurt you. Because if you don't know how to practice Scrum Master, you won't, if you don't know how to practice Scrum at all, you won't know how to communicate it. So these are various ways that you can start building a backlog, practicing Scrum and Kanban, and having your own backlog to where you set your own sprints, whatever it is. It might be a vacation you're planning. It might be how you plan your household. You might have a specific event that you want to work through. Okay, so the first thing is I want you to know is that you can create a backlog and start operating Scrum tonight. And in fact, you should. So these are examples that I have. This up here on that board that you see, I have it right here. Okay, this is how I manage my life. All of these are actually different ways that I manage my life. I manage my life goals. So my overall life goals through Jira. Jira is one of the Agile tools that many Agile tools have a free version. So I manage it using Jira. I also have managed I have my personal backlog at work that I use with Trello. I have operated using sprints to plan a wedding using Trello, planning birthday parties, planning my grandfather's funeral in multiple locations recently, using Kanban and Scrum. So that I do electronically, but this board that you see here is to my left. I use it every single week. My sprints at home are 1 week. I know my mentor, hers are 2 weeks. And the reason I can't stress this enough is because everything that the Scrum Guide is not everything that we do, but it is our core. Scrum is our core. Among everything else, it is what keeps everyone in line. And so you have to be able to communicate that you understand what Scrum is, the values, who the roles are, your role as a Scrum Master, and understand what it's like to have a backlog refinement session, a sprint planning session, a daily check-in, a daily Scrum, a sprint demo review, a sprint retrospective. I'm actually going to go into sprint retrospectives later because that's going to have its own topic. But more than anything, the key takeaway is 1, be the example. You can't teach other people about Scrum if you're not doing it yourself. With teams, we have to be able to coach people and empathize and understand what it's like when you get blocked, right? And practicing this yourself, if you're not already doing it, can also be helpful. Now, again, Scrum is 1 to 4 weeks. So if you start doing this at home or you have a project coming up, you can pick your sprint and start getting your ceremonies on the calendar. I told y'all mine is 1 week. I intentionally have a sprint planning session where I close out our sprint review and sprint planning, where I look at what I did from the past week, look and see what did I plan to do, what did I not get done, what's rolling over, any questions or blockers I have. And then I take that into consideration when I'm planning for my next week. Okay. And I have check-ins every single day with myself where I start to figure out where my progress is. And this is not going to be typical from a Scrum Master, but the other thing is that Scrum is the process and it's irrelevant without a backlog. Okay. You have to be able to have a backlog and understand what it is we're trying to accomplish. So if you are only trying to read the Scrum Guide and you're only trying to learn about the ceremonies of Scrum, it has to be applicable. So that's another reason why no matter what else we do, if you walk out today and you do nothing else, these are things that you can start to do, even if it's on paper. If it is in your note, in your phone, you can create a task list in your phone and start planning things out. Or a note section. You can create a Kanban board like I have a physical one. You can create electronic ones. And in fact, I would encourage you to get comfortable with different types so that you can help your teams. Okay. Tip number 2, setting agenda, boundaries, and expectations. Most of the time when people are talking to me about Scrum and I ask them what they love and hate, they say there's too many meetings. Okay. And I will say, oftentimes I agree with them because there's people who are, we walk into a meeting that could have been an email. We don't know why we're there. We don't know who's supposed to be there. We don't know what the purpose is, what the agenda, what are we talking about? What are we not talking about? What I did at the beginning of this meeting is an example when I said, hey, this is what we're not going to be talking about. I'm not going to be doing an Agile 101 or Scrum 101, but this is my objective. Anybody can do that. Anytime you have a meeting, being able to set an agenda or an outline. You can't see it, but even for this, I have some time blocks that I've done for myself, agenda for this meeting. Okay, anybody can do that. You don't have to be the Scrum Master right now. You could be on a team. You could be with your family anytime. You could plan around to be able to start creating agendas, setting boundaries, setting expectations. So the key takeaways here are within any meeting, specifically the one that you are planning, you're the host of, understand what the ask is of your audience. Right? They need to know, are they there to learn something, to just be informed? Is there going to be an outcome that they're going to have to do? Do they need to be prepared prior to this? And the agenda just identifies how the rest of the presentation is going to go. And it also helps people be more attentive to whether they should be there or not. Then that goes into taking notes, tips number 3. I don't want to get too much in you. I don't want to teach you too much tactical. However, we are the example. We help be able to keep things in line, set expectations. We need to know who's doing what at when so we can help follow up. We can coach our team members to help follow up, and that everybody can take notes. But this is probably the one thing that I do more than anybody else, I would say, on my team. Okay. And the reason why I stress this is if you are not a note taker, this might be a challenge for you. Most Scrum Masters I know are naturally note takers anyway. And a lot of times this falls to just the woman in the room, no matter what. And what I want to encourage is if it makes you uncomfortable to be the note taker or makes it uncomfortable to be the person that takes the meeting minutes, I would ask you why. Some people feel like it's weak, but really the person that takes the notes are the ones that have the most control, the ones who's got receipts, right? They're the ones that people are going to go to. Hey, can you tell me what did we talk about in that meeting? Can you tell me where it was at? We want to train everybody to be aware, but it has to start with us. So getting comfortable taking notes, be able to follow up with people, identify blockers and impediments. Any Hamilton fans out there? If you're a Hamilton fan, there's the song, "In the Room Where It Happens." So I would say, as a Scrum Master, oh, Andrea, are you raising your hand? Or are you saying yes? That's me too.
No, I'm not a Hamilton fan, but my daughter is a Hamilton fanatic.
Yep. So if anything else, that song, I feel like, as a Scrum Master, is the epitome of Scrum Master life. Be in the room where it happens. Be the first person to show up, the last person to leave, the person who knows what's going on, the person who can read between the lines. Okay. I often tell people, and I may have this analogy somewhere else, but I'll tell you now. That Scrum Master is like Smokey the Bear. For those of you who may not be in the US, Smokey the Bear was to prevent forest fires. And so I say that Scrum Master, basically, I think Smokey the Bear's slogan was like, even you can prevent forest fires. But I say Scrum Masters are like Smokey the Bear. We're the ones who are expected to prevent forest fires, smell the forest fire before anyone else, help rally the teams to be able to put the forest fire out, then be able to rally the troops to say, how can we prevent forest fires next time? And how, when we have a forest fire, can we do it better? Okay, that is the life of a Scrum Master. So we got to be able to know what's going on at any given time and be able to coach people to also be aware and to be alert. If a Scrum Master, if there's a Scrum Master who doesn't take notes at all, and you go to them and they don't know anything, that's a red flag. Right? They should at least know, as a Scrum Master, you should at least know who to point someone to, right? 4, facilitation. This is one of the key skills. This key skills that I look for when I'm looking to hire a Scrum Master is people who know how to work the room. Okay, someone that can, facilitation is being able to say, hey, I see someone's logging on right now while I'm potentially having a conversation. I can see Omar's facial expressions and be able to say, hey, Omar, do you have any questions? While I'm checking to say, has anybody entered the chat? Participants coming and going. That there's a way to manage that can be if that is overwhelming for you, you're going to be miserable. Okay. But that's something that you can do today. Anybody in any meeting can be aware of how things are going. And I would encourage you, if you're on a team or you're even a family meeting, start getting into those traits. And so I have very specific examples of what you can do. So in any meeting, you can watch for people to enter and exit, watch for people's facial expressions. You don't have to do it all at once, but if you want to get practice, these are some things. Monitor who's on mute and who's not, right? One of the things I have to do as a Scrum Master in this world is, like, for example, Andrea raised her hand. I'm like, okay, Andrea, did you have a question? Are you commenting are you basically giving a shout out to what I mentioned? If someone comes off of mute, that might be a indicator that they're trying to say something and they're waiting. Be the timekeeper, right? Volunteer to do those things to kind of facilitate the agenda. Even if you didn't set the agenda, you can volunteer to facilitate, to host the agenda. You can moderate the chat, like Omar said, I got you. That's something you can volunteer to do in any meeting. And there's also a way that when someone has a pause, you might say, hey, it's okay. Hey, Katrina, someone's got a question. Okay. That's something that you want to do. Or be able, if somebody does have a question about something, but we're not really in a place in the meeting to be able to handle that, you can get practice wrapping up your conversation or keeping a parking lot. Now, other specific examples of how you can also get this practice, if you don't feel comfortable just going into a meeting doing this, you can host focus groups. You can lead a Bible study. You can lead a breakout session. On some meetups or conferences have breakout sessions, and you can be one of the table leaders or one of the facilitators. Sometimes at a lot of companies could have a Q&A session or an AMA, ask me anything. You could be the moderator or the facilitator to that, making sure that you're carrying on with the questions, but then also making sure that everybody has their questions answered. Some other specific things is that there is a formal association, International Association of Facilitators, that you can also take some classes on as well. Sometimes they also have webinars, conferences, where you can get trained as a facilitator if you prefer more structure. Okay. But the key takeaway here is that it is a key skill, but it is a life skill. Anybody can do this, but some people struggle with it. So it's something, if that's you, then you might say, okay, I can leave here today and go check out the IAF, right? And that as I said before, reading the room is kind of what we have to do, whether and especially in a hybrid environment. I actually just, I think Andrea was there. I attended virtual. We both attended virtual, a hybrid meeting for the Atlanta Scrum users group. There were people in the room as well as we were online. That just takes it up a whole ball game too, when you're managing people in a virtual atmosphere as well as people face to face. Skill number 5. We as Scrum Masters don't need to be able to create roadmaps necessarily. We don't necessarily need to keep the vision. The product owners are usually the ones to do this, but it's still healthy to understand the concept. I will say in my experience, having been a product owner, it's made me a better Scrum Master because I understand that there are customers paying us to do a job. And that just because somebody also asks us to do something, we have to make sure that it is in line with what we're trying to achieve. So if you want to get in that habit, you can create vision boards. I love them. You can create vision boards. You can create them virtually on Canva. You can create paper. So these are my, this was last year, actually, my vision from last year. You can set action items for yourself. You can start to prioritize, which will get you in that experience to be able to help coach your teams through it, because we also coach product owners too, right? We are the Agile evangelist and coaches. So that's why sometimes we have to know these concepts that are not necessarily part of our daily job. And the key takeaway is that we must know where we're going before we get started. And I say that because even as a Scrum Master, you're going to get started on a job. And one of the first things that I do is have one-on-ones with everybody. Because even though I know how Scrum is made from a Scrum guide, it's not necessarily always going to be textbook. We don't want to break things that are already working. So we want to start with, hey, what's going well? What are some challenges and how can I help fill in those gaps? And from a vision perspective, if you're just getting started with this and you want to understand the concept of what it's like for our teams to be following a roadmap, then there's no wrong answer. This is the fun part, right? And I also want to encourage that work can be fun. Work can be fun. It can be exciting. And that's what I'm here is to help. And I'm going to go into this, but if these things I'm talking to you about make you miserable, then that's another conversation. But if they excite you, then let's dive into them. And then the last one from an operations perspective is metrics and reporting. It is my least favorite, but is the most valuable, I will say. The compassion-oriented stuff, I feel like, is the sweet spot for Scrum Masters, but that's not why they pay us. Most companies pay us to understand metrics and reporting type stuff, to be able to track trends, right? Because our whole goal is, what are we trying to achieve? How are we getting there? How are we doing stuff? Can we get faster? Can we get better? Are we having blockers? And the only way we can start to identify those things if we track it. And one of my favorite quotes is, the things that get measured are the things that get improved. So if you can start practicing that within yourself, you will also be able to help coach your teams on it, while understanding my caveat on metrics is it's just part of the story. It's not the whole thing, right? But it does create conversation starters, but we need them to be able to get started. So some of the things that, again, I'm trying to give practical examples of how you can say, well, I don't understand metrics. How can I get used to that concept? If you go to the gym, if you have a heart monitor, if you do a Fitbit, if you have MyFitnessPal, these are all things you see here. They have metrics already built into them. So you can get experience doing that, getting comfortable with the visualization of charts and diagrams and numbers and trends. So I go to Orange Theory. I also go to LA Fitness, but then I was using MyFitnessPal. And I'll give you a very personal example. Funny thing. I found the more often I had dessert, the more my weight fluctuated. And the less that I ran, the least amount of times I went to the gym, I didn't sleep as well. Right? Now, I'm putting these in general terms that are not related to teams because you may not have access to team metrics right now, but it's something you get comfortable with. At the same time, I do track my metrics of my own sprints. So this picture that you see here with the start and end dates, that is actually what I do. And these are the same type of metrics that I track for my team from a throughput perspective. I also track them from story points, but this is something you can start to do. Basics. How many items did you commit to in your sprint? How many did you adopt into your sprint? How many did you roll over? How many did you withdraw? How many did you complete? And make notes of drag factors and notes, right? That these are things that you can get experience with. And it's important because we help coach other people. So we have to start with ourselves and in understanding the empathy of, oh, I committed to 5 items, but I only got 2 done. Well, why did you get 2 done? Why didn't you get what happened to the other 3? If you say, well, I'm waiting on somebody from something, does that other person know that you're waiting on something? These are type of questions that we have to ask. And if you don't have empathy for how that may come across, or don't have empathy for what it's like to be blocked, it could cause a problem from a team morale perspective too. So my whole thing is also about being the example, starting with yourself, practicing what you preach. And these are the way how you can do that without cutting corners. Okay, because we want to be able to teach all these things to our teams and also understand what it's like. And you can start to get your eyes on this type of stuff before you're ever a Scrum Master. Now, the last thing, the next 6 are on compassion. I'll tell you, the first 6 is what people hire us for. The leadership, they like when we can help people get along, but a lot of times that's not what keeps us having a paycheck. The numbers, the metrics, the backlog, the physical stuff that people can see. But the compassion-oriented stuff is what I feel like makes a Scrum Master's life. That's what makes my world go around, is being able to bring the coaching and mentoring, focusing on teamwork and accountability, conflict management, giving and receiving feedback, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and talking to stakeholders. Before I go on, because I want to wrap this up in about 15 more minutes, let me look at the questions. Okay, timekeeping.
No,
yep. Okay.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. No questions so far.
All right, great. So the first 6 were about the operations, the getting stuff done, the organizing. The compassion, these things that we're about to go over, this is why this is a leadership role, and this is why I believe it actually should be hard to become a Scrum Master. I see on social media all the time, people are saying, oh, all you got to do is take a 2-day course and then you can make, 6 figures. We are in a role that we can influence or hurt people. We can break or make individuals, teams, individuals, and organizations. Like we can genuinely hurt people. And I unfortunately can say that I've often filled in for a teams that have already had Scrum Masters. And so being able to see what I can do to help kind of get things back on track when they were not on track. Okay. So I'm going to take this very serious, that these are the parts of where not anyone should just be able to be a Scrum Master, because this people stuff. All right. So, I didn't have a number. All right. Well, I'll go here. All right. So from a coaching and mentoring perspective, that is what I do. I do help coach and mentor my teammates on the Scrum process. I'm the subject matter expert of the Scrum process. Sometimes it's also individuals. Sometimes because nobody reports to me, my teammates feel more comfortable sometimes speaking to me about things they don't yet feel comfortable talking to their manager about, or that they don't feel comfortable in a group. So for example, we might have a retrospective and a topic comes up and somebody might pull me aside, right? But this is also where we can hurt people if you don't have any experience in this at all. Or if you're also not willing to be coached and mentored. which is why I also say the best coaches and mentors have their own coaches and mentor. Be very wary of people taking advice from people who won't take advice. And so I say that now, if you don't have a coach, you don't have a mentor, if you don't have a counselor, I don't know, if you don't believe in, if you think you know everything and you feel very uncomfortable to asking advice from other people, getting feedback, be very careful about going into this role, because I think we need to be able to be held accountable just as much as we're holding others accountable. And part of that is being a mentee as well as being a mentor. So some practical ways. So this is Jamie, my mentor, that I'm in an accountability group that I've been in for about 2 years, as well as SCORE is an organization here. I think it's just in Georgia. I'm not sure if it's international, to where it's for businesses who want to go have a business coach. So I participated in that. But you can find an organization to be a mentor, or you can find an organization to get a mentor. There's a variety of different ways. And then you can also start asking anyone and everyone how you can help them, how you can help them be more successful, how you can find out what their pain points and challenges are, what keeps you awake at night. So you can start guiding others, as well as be able to ask other people, hey, can you be my mentor so that you can ask me those things as well? Is to have a mutual relationship. And that Scrum Masters are coaches of the Scrum process, but are coaches and individuals, cheerleaders of individuals, okay? And that we're leaders helping to make the team and the workplace a better place. Like when we say we need more peacemakers, that we have a unique role, and that because nobody reports to us, and it's more of an egalitarian network rather than us being able to hire and fire people, we bring the team together, right? We help coach and mentor them. And I would just want anyone who is going to be in that role to also be willing to be a recipient. So then that goes into leadership, trust, accountability, and teamwork. If you don't like working in teams, you're going to hate being in a Scrum Master. And that is also because Scrum is teams. Like, it's synonymous. Scrum life is a team life. So if you know for a fact that you don't like team group projects, then I would suggest that this is not for you. But I would also say if you do like that, but you want more experience, there are ways you can do that. Things like playing team sports, or you can be a sports coach. You can, anytime you volunteer to be an event coordinator, whether you're in a church ministry or a lot of companies have Christmas parties, things that you can be a leader and people will look towards you to kind of take the initiative. City council members. I had somebody who wanted to be a Scrum Master, and he had previously run for local city in his where he lived, and he did not have that listed on his resume. But when he started talking about that, it just added to so much character about how he's used to working with other people. And I told you that facilitation is one of the key skills. Leadership is one of the key skills. You cannot come into this role without ever having a job at all. And you cannot come into this role without ever having led people. Or I would be concerned about that. The exception is if you're in you're all new college grads, basically, and everybody's starting off entry level. That's the one use case. Well, I would say that would make sense. But for the most part, there is an assumption that you already have either professional or volunteer experience leading other people. And again, if you're not comfortable just stepping into a group, there are leadership development programs that you can take, whether through your community college, through sometimes the company that you already work for. You can get a certificate. You can actually go back to college. There are leadership organizations. So if you, again, prefer structure and wanting to get that leadership experience, sometimes those certification and education programs will have it built in. So that's an example. But I just can't say enough how the Scrum Master role is not entry level. may have a beginner opportunities, but it is not entry level. People have to trust us. They at least have to trust us that we're not going to harm them. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who are doing harm. There's a lot of Scrum Masters who are getting hired on the job and they don't know at all what they're doing. They've never had a job before. They've never led people, and it's setting everyone back. And then, of course, how can you hold others accountable if you're not willing to be held accountable? And then also, from a leadership perspective, you got to get comfortable with someone telling you you might be doing it wrong, right? As a Scrum Master, we're not there to just tell people what to do. They hold us accountable as much as we hold them. I'll give you a personal example. We were in a retrospective, and I like to do fun retrospectives sometimes. So like with Play-Doh and Legos. And the first time, it was fine. But then I had an action item. I was supposed to do something on our Jira board. It was relatively minor. It was just, but it was something that was a blocker, a pain point for my team. So then the next retrospective, we come in and one of my teammates goes, I don't understand why we're going to play with Play-Doh like kids when I don't have what I need on the Jira board on my backlog. Now, afterwards, he apologized, but I think he was completely within reason to say what he said, right? We are not the people that just sit around and tell everybody else what to do. We have our action items and things that we're held accountable and responsible for too. And if you're just wanting to just be the laissez-faire, hands-off coach and have no responsibilities of your own, you're barking up the wrong tree. And that goes into conflict management. This is one that can get very uncomfortable for people because sometimes we have to coach individuals when they're not getting along. Sometimes we have to coach leaders who aren't getting along. But sometimes conflict doesn't have to always be with people. I kind of break it down into the people, processes, and technology. There's different types of conflict that are conflicts not always bad. It's another word for blocker, right? We are professional blocker identifiers and professional blocker removers. So we are professional conflict managers. And I have this here. So I do have a master's in conflict management. And one of the things that we did was the Thomas Kilmann conflict mode instrument. And this is important to figure out what is your conflict mode. To figure out, does conflict elicit something in you that makes you want to throw up or run away, or something like I'll tell you the Jira board. When I had to work with an external teammate to try to get the configuration of our backlog. And sometimes leadership, even something like that, they don't want to do. So you have to be able to advocate for your team. You have to be able to reach out and push back. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then there are ways that you can learn. So then that gets to, there's a variety of different ways to get comfortable with conflict. Start having conversations with people that you might not. If you are only listen to a certain news reporting, maybe get comfortable being open to the other side, their points of view. Because we have to have conversation. We are the mediator, what do you call it? The non-biased party. And we have to be able to have difficult conversations with sometimes people we don't like. Okay. And we have to be able to know, to facilitate conversations between people who don't like each other for one reason or another. And we have to be able to get all those people in the room together to be able to still move forward with what we're trying to accomplish. So there are ways that you could do that, having difficult conversations. Take this instrument. There are bystander trainings that you can also take and just see, one, what does conflict mean to you and what you can do now to start being more comfortable with it. Retrospectives, again, this is something you can, if you are not doing this today, I highly encourage you to start doing this with your friends, with your family. Some people call this the family meeting, where you just sync up and you figure out how things are going in your family. You might do it with your spouse, saying, hey, how are things going with our marriage? You might do this with your roommates. checking in. What's going well with our roommate situation? What are some challenges? What are some action items, things that we would like to do to get better? Anybody can do this anytime, and I highly recommend practicing this now. There's also a book. I'm going to include this in the resources. Actually, I'm going to include a few resources on retrospectives, because the retrospective is our jam. Like, we might facilitate a lot of different ceremonies, but the retrospective is the one that we show up and we show out for, I think, because it's getting experience, getting people to communicate and to walk through from a continuous improvement perspective. And sometimes we got to get creative. And also a fun fact, a lot of times that's one of my key indicators of when I ask somebody who is applying to be a Scrum Master role, what is your favorite retrospective format? And you don't know, then that's a key indicator that you don't know what it's like to be a Scrum Master. But you can start practicing retrospectives anywhere, anyway. So I'll tell you that for those of you who have read Coaching Agile Teams by Lisa Adkins, and towards the end of the book, she basically challenges the reader to chart their path to being an Agile coach. So this is what you see here on the left, where I went back my whole life and I started mapping out things in my life that were going on, organizations I participated in, where I was involved with church when I was younger. I was in sports teams. I was often leader on my sports teams. Then different projects I was involved in college, and different roles that I held. This is a retrospective format. And it also probably be very good exercise for anybody to do who's trying to figure out how you can communicate your transferable skills. But this is also where specifically getting comfortable with receiving negative feedback, right? When you're focusing on, it's not just about negative, but when you're saying, what are things that are not going well? What are blockers in our relationship? What are blockers with us as a team, as a family? What are some of our challenges and what can we do better? I've heard people describe these, excuse me, as the bitch fest. Sometimes it is, okay? Sometimes it's just within my teams. It's just going to be an experience to check in and for my teams to vent. But for the most part, the focus is on continuous improvement, taking our problems and creating solutions to be able to solve problems. And the Scrum Masters are the primary facilitator of this, making sure that we're not focusing only on the good, and that we're getting people out. When people say, I'm fine, we're fine, everything's fine, it's generally not fine. And every time somebody says that, I'm like, okay, let's give us a few more retrospectives, okay? But we're also there to say we're not focusing only on the bad either, right? It's generally rarely only bad. So when you focus on, don't leave those shout outs. Don't leave the things that are going well. If you're already doing a New Year's resolution, you already have been practicing retrospective to an extent, because you've started looking at how did the previous year go and what do you want to do best? And then SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat is a business term that's also a good experience, and that's also a retrospective format. And I joke that I have done retrospectives on retrospectives, and I have done retrospectives on all of our ceremonies to say, how are each of our ceremonies going? How could it be going better? I'm actually getting ready to do one of my current teams in 2 weeks. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is one that I feel like is not talked enough about from a Scrum team perspective. But if you want to get more practice in being non-biased, being open to others, then being aware of accessibility, then this is something that I would ask you to start researching a little bit more of. For example, in this remote world, I had teammates who couldn't hear very well. So when it went to where we were 100% remote, it became difficult for them to be able to join in the conversation sometimes, whereas when they were in the office, they were standing right next to someone and they could say, hey, can you speak up a little bit louder? So these are things to where if you are just getting involved with organizations that help promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, and just be more aware that people, how can we make sure that everybody's represented? How can we make sure, one of our whole goals is to make sure that everybody's at the table that need to be at the table, right? So what does that look like? Making sure that people are there, that they're able to speak up, and that their voices are equally heard, right? That everybody contributes. One thing I love about Scrum, right? No matter if you've been there for 10 years or one, you walk in and you have a point of view, right? And so anything that we can do to be able to be the bridge builders in our homes and our communities is great practice for being a Scrum Master. I'm still diving into this because, again, like I said, I don't feel like DEI is talked enough about from a Scrum perspective, from team development. But I will tell you, it is. We have to be able to make sure everybody's there, the quiet ones, the loud ones, the people who might have trouble hearing, people who might have trouble seeing. We have to be able to provide options for everybody to contribute. And then the last one, talking to stakeholders. This is, if I can't say anything else, they're people too, y'all. When people talk about executives or C-suite, they, get stressed out about, oh my gosh, what if I see them in the elevator? Or people sometimes speak negatively about leadership, having expectations. I'll give you my example. I tell everybody, the Amazon. When my Amazon package is early, I'm ecstatic. I think they're the best company ever. When my Amazon package is on time, I'm like, okay, they're okay. But when my Amazon package is late, I'm going to want to know why it's late. I'm going to know when it's going to be there. I'm going to want to know how to prevent it from being late next time. That's what we do, right? We acknowledge that we have customers who are waiting for us to do a job, and we have to just set expectations. We are the liaisons between our teams who are building, and we are giving them shout outs saying, look, these are the people who are building your products. You can't exist without them. But we're also telling our teams, we also don't exist without the people who hire us, right? That it's completely reasonable for people to want to know what's going on. But this often makes people uncomfortable getting in a room with when people start asking questions. I often have to facilitate, or I almost every day facilitate meetings with people at all levels of the organization. Sometimes I don't know who they are. I've never met them before. Sometimes I have to reach out to strangers on my behalf. On my team's behalf that I've never met before. And if that makes you uncomfortable, there are ways that you can get around that. And one of those I actually will say that I don't have here listed is Toastmasters International. It's public speaking, but there are portions of it that helps you just get comfortable speaking to people in general. But there's different ways that you can get involved. Things that I've done that I highly recommend. Something as volunteer to work the check-in or desk or registration desk at your work if you have one, or if an event goes along with volunteering to be the host or the facilitator. Host an event or happy hour. Give a company-wide presentation. These are experiences that you can get being in an environment with a lot of different people at the same time at all levels. And then the other thing is also, you could always try to seek a mentor who is in a C-suite or senior leadership role to get guidance from them and get more comfortable working with people at all levels of organization. Okay. And so ultimately here, the takeaway is job titles do matter to an extent, and that we need to be able to be comfortable talking to all of them with respect, but also respecting ourselves too, and advocating for our teams. And there are ways that you can get comfortable with that. And one of the key questions I love to always ask anyone, specifically in senior leadership roles and the people who are fighting to keep our company afloat, is what keeps you up at night? That's a blocker. Anything that we can do to be valuable to their company to answer that blocker is something that can help us solve real problems. So that's 12 tips, and I kind of been going along with the way. If you are looking at Scrum, at setting agenda expectations, taking those, facilitation, leadership, teamwork, conflict management, if any of that right away, you hate, you are probably going to hate being a Scrum Master. And those are ways that you would probably might be better for other roles. But I give this presentation because there's a difference between making you being measurable and you saying, I think I could get better at that, right? If you told me you hate people, I would say, don't do this. That's not something you can get around, right? So if any of these things you go, hey, I actually can do that today, then that's what I would want you to do. But if you're looking at this list and you're like, that sounds miserable, this job sounds terrible, then that's okay too. And we can help work and see what's a better opportunity for you. So this now I'm going to turn over to you. So these are 12 tips that we talked about, some key skills that I use every single day. My question is now going to come back to you. My goal was that you had at least one thing that you could walk away today and maybe improve on or dive into or communicate about your experience. Did anybody have that? Was this valuable to you, and what did you learn?
I need to work on my communication skills verbally. I'm trying to get confident in that because I've been more of an individual contributor versus, being in a PM space. So I'm still getting my bearings. Like I kind of like Bambi right now. So I've affirmed though with this message that Scrum is where I need to go, because I keep saying Scrum, PMP as far as certification, but I think I want to get my Scrum first and then worry about the PMP later. So that's reaffirmed, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us about this topic because it's been a question in my mind for the last 6 months.
Okay. And I'll tell you a personal story specifically about communication. You've seen it here. I mess up my words sometimes. I have not been diagnosed, but I struggled with my whole life. I flip words around. I tell people it's like verbal dyslexia, to where I mix words, I repeat words. When I was in Toastmasters, it did get better. I will tell you, being able to get comfortable speaking and practicing, that it has improved. And so an organization like that can also be helpful if you have, like for me, it's anxiety mostly related.
Yeah, they definitely make you accountable. I haven't been able to go to one lately, but they do count the ums and the uhs, so it makes me more aware. Just haven't had a chance because they're usually in the middle of the day, but I'm going to try to make that another, like I did sit appointment.
That's okay.
That.
That's okay. I'll tell you, it took me 5 years to join Toastmasters for that reason, because I went to observe one and I saw that they were counting us and ums, and I wasn't strong enough. I felt I wasn't strong enough to be able to handle it. I've been trying to get back into it. There's one that's near me, but it conflicts with my work schedule. Let's see. It's Signet Professional Services. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. Says reflective person need to engage others in retrospectives. It is so valuable, so valuable. It's something that anybody can do any day, every day. You can do one with yourself, with one other person. You can do them in a group. I actually do Nedra. Okay. I actually I give myself a performance review every so often using retrospective technique as well. What are the things that I accomplished? What are some challenges, things that got in my way versus some things that I want to focus on, my action items going forward? All right. Anyone else that you learned something new, or at least one thing that you can take away and run with tonight?
I think you really need to make a blog post about this, and really, or even something a lot deeper. I love how you went specific to the point that the 2-day course is not sufficient. Many people have been I've been on so many sessions that people are say, okay, I got my Scrum Master certification, but nobody's accepting me. And now that you've drilled down to these 12 items, this is so valuable. It's unfortunate that not many people are talking about this. A lot of people need to understand the importance of what recruiters are looking for, or what companies are looking for when are searching for a Scrum Master. And I can't agree with you more that a Scrum Master can either make it or break it for a team. So I believe that this whole presentation is completely valuable.
Thank you.
Yep.
Jeanette?
Yes, I agree with Omar. Fortunately, I took my Scrum Master certification with a really good instructor. He said, just like Omar said, he said that these 2 days are not sufficient. Get a mentor or a coach. And I really know that, you know, the more I go back to my material, the more I know I have to to keep catching up. And thank you very much, Scrum Mother, Katrina, I like that, because you really have go deep. You know, we always focus on how to manage the tools like Jira and Kanban, but it's more than that. Okay, now my question is, I have volunteered a lot in church, and I have led out groups since I was young, and that's the reason why I am here, because a cousin of mine told me, Dana, you have led out, you have done this since you were young. You can be you can be a project manager. So after that, I deviate a little bit and make my way on Scrum Master. And but my question is, how do I transfer my knowledge of leadership into my resume? How do I show, how do I make my resume? Because the resume is the first phase of us. Before we get into the interview and we show all our knowledge and we show all our passion and all our experience, how do I make my resume be attractive so that HR would want to contact me and interview me?
So I will tell you I'll tell you the easy answer and the not so easy answer. The not so easy answer is the resume is only after you've met people.
I'm sorry, repeat again?
The resume is really only going to help, I think, after you've met people, right? It's not going to get you in the door. That's why going to these meetups and going to different meetups with their job boards and connecting, and to connect personally so you can talk about your experience face to face. That's the not so easy answer, is that it's really about who you know. I will tell you, I mean, even with my experience in the industry, it took me about 6 months to be able to find the role, to land the role that I'm in now, because of being able to call people that I knew and ask questions and learn more about the company and what they were looking for. Only they asked for my resume after they talked to me, and they wanted to know more about me as a person and my experience. Now that's the not so easy answer, because and another reason why that is because there are so many people who unfortunately are lying. There are people who are lying about their experience, and it is, well, one problem is there's a lot of people who are trying to become Scrum Masters anyway because of what Omar said. Just take a 2-day class, you're good. You don't have to have any experience whatsoever. You can just walk in. That's not true. So that in itself, flooding the market, is making it difficult for us to see the good people. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then on top of that, then you have people lying. I have people who come to me and they'll say, hey, I'm trying to land my first role. Their resume and their LinkedIn shows that they've been a Scrum Master for 10 years. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And because they say, well, that's what's getting me the interview. I'm like, but you're lying, and that's going to hurt your reputation. Right. I can honestly, a lot of times I can tell from the resume immediately if somebody knows what they're talking about. But also if I talk to you and I ask you things about Scrum and you don't know what that's like. Right. So those are the harder things. Now, the easier thing is make it, if you have solid experience at whether it's volunteer or not, you can put that on your resume, specifically if you ran it with Scrum, right? I don't think you have to lie about your experience. That's my opinion. There are people who will tell you honest. I think if you communicate leadership, facilitation, what you know, create, I know more people are doing interactive resumes. Build yourself a website, build yourself a presentation about yourself, physically showing what you're capable of, right? That it's about getting creative. So unfortunate, I actually will tell you, I have, on my website, I do have a whole process on ScrumMaster application process that you can purchase. And it actually has examples of my resume multiple resumes that I've used for the jobs that I have gotten as a full-time Scrum Master that got positive feedback. And then I also include all the stuff I'm telling you about, that there are ways to like find the roles, figure out what you want. Because another thing that people are, it's all about the money. It's all about working remote. It's not about Scrum. People are wanting to pursue this role without actually knowing what it is to be a Scrum Master.
Yeah. Sorry, Katrina. I'm in the middle of I'm going to keep listening, but I'm here with my client. I'm a nurse assistant. And while I'm doing this, I'm taking care of my client, but I'm listening to you. So I'm going just to pause this, but I'm listening. Keep talking.
No worries. So that's what I was just saying. So I actually, and I'm both giving myself a, what do you call it? I don't know. I'm giving myself props, but these guides I have on my resume, I spent a lot of time putting all the information I could think about applying for Scrum Master roles, finding Scrum Master roles, applying, what to say, what to do. Those are on my website that you can purchase. And I'm also offering for anyone that purchases each of the guides, I'm offering a 30-minute one-on-one, a free 30-minute one-on-one for anyone that purchases. And if you purchase both guides, the application and the interview process, then I'm doing including a one-on-one and 1 hour one-on-one as well. But anyway, so that all this information about applying as for Scrum Master roles is there. But the hardest part is that even if your resume is just the last thing, and I feel like there's a lot of emphasis on, everybody's got a different opinion on what your resume should look like and what it should include, what it shouldn't include. But my experience, that's usually the last thing after I've already talked to someone and we've agreed like, hey, this would actually be a really good opportunity. Anybody feeling bad about that? Did I just burst anybody's bubble? Anyone upset? Okay, we see a few things. People, let's see, Patrell said, I believe 90% of jobs are obtained via networking. Who you know is very important. And it didn't I mean, I guess it kind of always was, but in this particular industry, it didn't used to be, because there were more Scrum Master roles open than Scrum Master, whereas now there's so many people who want to be a Scrum Master that it's just, I have a friend that she said that she gets 500 applications probably within an hour of opening a job rec. Alicia states people have to be able to trust you, and that is why it's also hard, because if you're automatically lying about your experience, you're already degrading your role as a Scrum Master, because it's all about trust. People have to trust that you're going to take care of them. You're going to trust that you're going to take them as individuals, that you're going to care if your team is not performing, right? You're going to care if your business isn't performing. That everybody has to trust that they can also confide in you without you going to tell everybody in the world. But at least they have to trust that you won't hurt them. Let's see. Yeah, you know what, Andrea? Yeah, Andrea says it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you. And this is the other thing. This is a caveat. This is my opinion. There are a lot of people who are openly posting ongoing about not having a job. I've been let go from 2 jobs before. I intimately understand the pain. What I don't want is I don't want you to be known as the person who doesn't have a job. I want you to be known as a person who has a thought and a perspective on your profession, right? I need to know what you can do, what you bring to the table. And if all your whole platform is about looking for a job, what job are you looking for? Like, how do I know about hiring you? That is an extra. I completely understand vulnerability. I'm just cautioning that just be careful, be attentive as to what your message is, what's your narrative, that people know, especially most people are caring, and then they see somebody's out of a job, they're going to say, okay, what do they do? What do they specialize in? How can they help me? That's what business owners are going to be looking for. What is the career future of the Scrum Master role? That's a really good question. And I think I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. Any team will always need somebody in this role. It may not always be called a Scrum Master role, but we have proven over and over again that stable teams are more predictable, that teams that work together, get to know each other, they are more productive. So there will always be a team environment. And then there will not always be a Scrum Master role, but already right now they're calling them like continuous improvement or delivery leads, to where it is doing the same thing. You have someone focused on the team to do the operations and logistics stuff. It just may not always be called Scrum Master. And I don't think Scrum's going to go away, however, because a lot of times right now it's being used as a buzzword rather than the value of what the process brings. It's kind of rubbing people the wrong way. And because people are getting in Scrum Master roles who don't know what they're doing, who don't know how to facilitate, they don't know how to lead people, they don't know how to communicate. So then we're the evangelizers of Scrum, right? So if we do it wrong, the team does it wrong, then they're like, oh, well, Scrum sucks. So I think there will always be a need for someone in this role. It just may not always be called Scrum Master. And that's kind of, I don't know, maybe Omar or Andrea can say that as well. I feel like that's already going down that path, if even just for the reason of the word master being in it, has a negative connotation. So they're changing it to like Agile lead or something like that.
Different companies, it really depends on the company. Some are saying delivery manager. I've seen
hate
a couple of them. Honestly, I don't, tying to the connotation of just the word master in it, I think it's just stupid. I mean, it's a role. What the value that the role brings, it should be the focus. But again, whatever. As for that, it depends really.
Yeah, I mean,
companies
really,
will call it many things.
Like CI/CD, continuous improvement, continuous delivery. That honestly probably is more appropriate. Continuous improvement lead, team coach. Those are more accurate, to be honest. But we are the subject matter expert of this process. So I'm actually a book that I highly recommend. Another reason I'm saying this strongly, I'm reading Scrum right now. How to doing twice the work in half the time, I think is the full title. It's by Jeff.
That's a great book.
It's by Jeff Sutherland, who is one of the co-creators of Scrum, and the whole book is about how it got created, why it got created, the value it's brought. To some extent, we should be testing on this book rather than the Scrum Guide to an extent, because this is all about practical reasons, practical ways of how it's implemented and what you have to do to be able to achieve greatness, right? But anyway, that's a book. Book is, let me see if I have it in I have a whole bunch of resources for y'all. Let me see if I include it in my books. If not, I'll add it here.
Yeah, I can add it right. I can add the link right now if you want.
Yeah, if you can. It's really good, but it's from the co-creator of Scrum and how he came up with that. And I specifically say how good it is because oftentimes Agile is treated like, in the US, we refer to it as tree huggers, like lovey-dovey, very like fun, up in the air. The Jeff Sutherland specifically was in the US military. He went to West Point. He has degrees in mathematics and he's a statistician, master's, doctorate, all this kind of stuff. He's a numbers person. He would not have been pushing this if he didn't believe that it was actual practical. And the book actually showcases reasons. No, seriously, Andrea, have you ever heard that? Tree huggers? Like they're environmentalists. Like, oh, save the world. We're the peacemakers. So that's what the term is, tree huggers. It's normally used as a negative connotation, but I like it. I self-identify. So I always ask this question as well in good retrospective format. Was there anything here that you did not find valuable, was not beneficial, and was a complete waste of your time coming to this evening? And it's completely okay if there was something that you're like, I don't know how I feel about that. Let's see, Omar, from your perspective, was there anything that you like, I don't know?
Honestly, I think you drilled it down to the point in which everybody can really understand or get a good glimpse of what is expected from somebody who wants to become a Scrum Master. Whether you go the safe route, whether you go the Scrum Alliance route, whether you go professional scrum.org or even Scrum at Scale, I think you garnered all of the essentials. I love this. I actually would love to collaborate with you and maybe to make one for POs, because it's necessary. People need to really see this. And if you go the CSPO route, you don't even have to take a test. You just have to be a corpse at a session for 2 days, and that's it. So I think that this is very valuable.
I give a shout out though, because this is the 5th time. So this is the 5th time I've given this presentation. The first 2 were very, very simple. Like literally, I think I had 10 slides. I then developed, so in case you wanted to know more, I have a social media, 60 videos going into more details about each of these as well. So there's 60 episodes. I added it up to about an hour and a half of content if you watched every single one of them, about how to get experience as a Scrum Master without being a Scrum Master. So then the last 2 was, I think, way too much information. Went too deep into things. I got feedback from one of the hosts, who is also a scrum.org trainer. His concern was, first of all, we teach people to do stuff. Like, we don't want Scrum Masters to stay in the weeds doing stuff for everybody, being people's administrative assistants. That's not what we're trying to do. And his concern is that ultimately Scrum is our core and our heart. So that's why I put a lot of emphasis on, I even told him, I'm like, look, he's a trainer. And I said, look, it's not enough. What we teach people is in the 2-day course is not enough for people to be successful in this role. But Scrum is our core, though. We don't want to lose Scrum. At the point that you don't know what the Scrum Guide is, you don't know what the Agile Manifesto is, you don't know what the different ceremonies are, you're no longer a Scrum Master, right? And I personally, I practice Scrum. I see the value in it. I live it out. And so that's still at our core. It's just there's a lot of other things day to day that we need to be able to do. Again, I think it's a life skills. Anybody can benefit from any of these 12 tips will make your life better, I believe. I don't think nothing about this would hurt anyone. It's just about whether you say, all these 12 tips sound like the best job ever, versus these 12 tips are not that great. So actually, on that note, you are the first people I'm able to really share it with. Starting tonight or tomorrow, maybe tomorrow, I'm actually starting a series on key life indicators, KLIs, that you might hate being a Scrum Master or not be very good at it. So kind of diving into these, but the opposite direction of when you might hate this role or might not be very good at it. To really dive into your heart and soul. That it was very controversial. I posted all across my social media, and some people are comfortable with people trying and then telling them they're not very good. Many people are not comfortable telling someone you should not do this. I'm not going to tell you shouldn't do it, but I'm going to be honest. There are some things that no matter how hard we try, we're just not naturally good at it. There are some things we're naturally good at that are better for other careers. So that's going to be my goal. And so I'm going to be releasing that. It's kind of going to be the opposite though. How do I log for PDUs? Actually, that's a good question for Andrea.
Yeah, she just posted the answer.
Oh, right. Okay. And actually, on that note of PDUs, so I'm going to send out this deck, the updated deck to Andrea or to Omar, whoever sends it out. And I have a whole bunch of resources of everything that I talked about, different type of backlogs, different books, how to connect with me. Since I also have an LLC, mine also any time spent in one-on-ones, group coaching, or workshops also qualify for PDUs and SEUs as well. So a little bit of a plug. Again, just a reminder, if this is something you're interested in, I do one-on-ones, group coaches. I do a build your own backlog workshop. It's kind of one of my things. And then for anyone who purchases the application process or interview process guides, I'm including a one-on-one to be able to help you with that. And it's something because it requires you to do a lot of the work to read the information, and then we can meet, and then I can fill in the blanks and provide guidance on your next steps. All right, 7:31. Anyone have any last minute question for me before I turn it back over to Omar and Andrea?